MSNBC is not coping well with Trump's shock victory.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. You could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
I can't believe they're still doing this. They still don't get it. And this kind of delusion, this being this out of touch with the American people is literally why Trump won. It is just an unimaginable level of cope to suggest that the reason Harris didn't win is because she's a woman or because she's a person of color. No, actually, she wouldn't even have been on the ballot if she was a white dude. That's just a fact. Biden literally said he was only considering women to be his vice president and strongly preferencing women of color, and she only was on the ballot because she was Biden's vice president. So she actually owed her position to the benefits of affirmative action and DEI and the approach taken by the Democratic Party. And so not only did she not lose because of her identity, she only even was in the race in the first place because of her identity. When she actually had to run on her merit, which was in the 2020 Democratic presidential primary, she crashed out and lost horribly. And are there some people out there who didn't vote for Harris consciously or subconsciously because of her gender or her race? I'm sure. But it's a vanishingly small portion of the American electorate, and that is not how most Americans think or operate. One theory I actually have is that I think the first woman president will be a Republican because they just won't make it a big deal, and neither with their media supporters and apparatus, and they'll just happen to be a woman and also be elected president. But the most delusional part of this clip is when Joy Reid says with a straight face that one of the weakest candidates in modern history actually ran a flawless campaign. Joy, put down the crack pipe. You've had enough. Was it a flawless campaign? When she was asked over and over again, what would you have done differently than Biden, the unpopular president where most Americans think the country's going on the wrong track and are worried about the economy and are hurt by inflation, she said, basically nothing. Was it a flawless campaign where she passed up massive softball media interviews like a Joe Rogan interview that would have brought her in front of the exact demographics of young men she wasn't doing well with and could win? Was it a flawless campaign where she flip-flopped or refused to clarify her position on literally dozens of issues, leaving Americans with no idea what this woman actually believes or stands for? I mean, I don't think it was the terriblest campaign I've ever seen, and I'm actually open to acknowledging that because Biden took the nomination and then was forced to drop out, they were in a tough spot and they had to kind of scramble together with a couple months to go. So obviously it'd be hard to run a super great campaign, but it was pretty bad, not flawless. And the fact that she got celebrity endorsements doesn't change that. One, because nobody gives a shit and it didn't help her. And two, because Democrats always get celebrity endorsements. It's just irrelevant. Oh my gosh, the idea that people like this get paid millions of dollars for their level of political analysis by the biggest cable news outlets and media outlets in the world. And then somewhat sane people like me have to make our own way in the world and don't get these cushy gigs or contracts. Just shows you why the media is f***ed up and why everybody's ditching it in droves. Joy Reid also blamed the patriarchy for Kamala's loss.
Essentially exceed the numbers that Joe Biden had in the suburbs. And I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. That is what it appears happened in that state, is that if you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times, is that you have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks. Yep. But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy. And, you know, God bless Shannon Watts, who has tried to have that conversation. But if people aren't receptive to it, and if people vote more party line or more on race than on gender and on protecting their gender, there's really not much more that you can do but tell people what the risks are and leave it to them to do the right thing. Stop.
Wow. Just wow. Obviously, I'm not a white woman, but I just must imagine this must be incredibly offensive and condescending. This idea that you're some sort of traitor to your gender if you are also a woman who is pro-life, or at least not rabidly pro-choice, and making your entire electoral decision around that. The idea that you must be voting for whiteness or the patriarchy. You couldn't possibly be concerned about our border crisis or immigration or about the high cost of living and inflation and bankrupting your family. No. You're just voting to uphold the white supremacist patriarchy buzzword word salad sandwich. Like, it really is such a flattening and reductionist and simplistic level of political analysis that Joy Reid engages in. This approach just strips women of their individuality and treats them like automatons who are just required to vote blue because of their chromosomes or whatever. And the actual issues here are much more complicated, okay? Maybe their idea of protecting women has to do with crime or the economy or immigration or fairness and safety for women in sports or prisons in regards to some of the radical trans stuff. Like, there's so much nuance here that could be motivating women's votes. You don't get to flatten them and reduce them into gender traitors because they dare vote in a way that the benevolent and wise minds of MSNBC find so incomprehensible. Newsflash, Joy. The Democrats lose over and over again because they listen to people like you. And when they do win, it tends to be when they're doing the opposite of the kind of approach you embody. But it's not just one anchor, Joy Reid. This really was a theme across the entire progressive MSNBC network, including this message from Joe Scarborough, one of the network's big hosts, similarly suggesting that it's just racism and sexism at play here in this election. Take a listen.
I just say, Rev, really quickly, too. Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found, when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of,
with other Hispanics. You got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've got to have real honest conversations about it.
Real honest conversations.
So it's so funny to hear them say, like, Democrats have balkanized people into racial groups too much, while literally doing that. And they really have learned nothing. Are there some people out there who are racist or sexist, including some minorities? Sure. That is not a major reason people didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And you're not going to insult people into agreeing with you. The more you attack these voters who are turning against you and insult them and suggest they must just be bad people, that's the only reason they could possibly not support your side, the more you're pushing them into the arms of your enemy. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. This approach is working out swimmingly for the Democratic Party. Most actual minorities are not buying this narrative about racism. Even many women are not buying this BS about everything being about sexism and patriarchy. The delusional people at MSNBC need to get a grip and really reevaluate this identity-obsessed, victimization, oppression Olympics, because it's totally missing the realities of what's going on in our country, and it's just further dividing our population. And it's only leading to bad results for their own side. But other than that, You're all doing amazing. What do you guys think of some of the lowlights here of MSNBC's election coverage? Are they ever going to get it, or am I missing something? Let me know in the comments below, and do hit that like button while you're at it.